We will now call the business session of the April 6th, 2021 City Council meeting to order at 6:07 p.m. On March 16th, 2020, the governor suspended various provisions of the Open Meetings Act pursuant to his state of disaster authority. The change was effective March 16th, 2020 until further notice or until a state of disaster declaration expires. In accordance with physical distancing guidelines and while providing for as much transparency as possible, this meeting will not be open to the public. This meeting is being broadcast live at wccc.tv. The audio is also being recorded. The video and audio recordings will be available to the public. According to the governor, attorney general, statutes that may require face-to-face interaction between members of the public and public officials are suspended, provided, however, that governmental bodies offer alternative methods of communication with their public officials. This includes public comment on agenda items. In an effort to allow as much public input as possible, those who wish to speak or submit their written comments on a listed agenda item were asked to register with the city secretary's office by noon today. Individuals who register to speak on an agenda item must limit their comments to 3 minutes. On items other than public hearings, speakers will be allotted 1 3-minute presentation regardless of the number of agenda items the speaker wishes to address. When called to speak, please state your name for the record. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or who becomes boisterous while addressing the city council shall be removed if directed by the presiding officer. And now please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll now move to the minutes. Next on the agenda is to consider the minutes from the March 16th, 2021 regular council meeting. Are there any corrections? Hearing none, those will stand approved, and we will move on to a series of special proclamations. The first two are very celebratory. We are going to celebrate two outstanding basketball programs who received much national acclaim this year, the Baylor women's basketball team and the Baylor men's basketball team. And we have these very great plaques, keys to the city, that we will be presenting to both programs. And so first, we will start with the women's basketball program. I, Dylan Meek, the mayor of Waco, and along with our city council, want to congratulate Kim Mulkey and the women's basketball team on a remarkable season. You have represented Baylor University, the city of Waco, through your commitment to achieving excellence. The heart of this team was evident through every game, and you made us so proud. This team has accomplished so much this year, and these accomplishments should be celebrated. Know that we look forward to cheering you on to victory in the next season. And now I will present you with the key to the city, and we'll read the inscription on this key. And it just says here, the key to the city of Waco, presented to the Baylor Bear women's basketball program in celebration of your success and your contributions to our community. Truly, you are such an inspiration to our community. And we are so thankful for what you represent. And we will be getting you, since we're in virtual meetings, we will be getting you this key to the city directly soon. And now we will move to our Baylor men's basketball program with another key to the city here. It says, I, Dylan Meek, mayor of Waco, and along with the city council, want to congratulate you on an also truly unforgettable season. You are continuing to represent the heart of Baylor University in the city of Waco, and your dedication to teamwork and your commitment to achieving excellence has been evident throughout every game, and you are making the city of Waco proud. You are continuing to accomplish goals, and these accomplishments should be celebrated. And we look forward to watching your continued success. Know the city of Waco is going to cheer both of these programs on in the years ahead. So now I will present to you the men's program, this key to the city, and I'll read the inscription, which is the key to the city of Waco, presented to the Baylor Bear men's basketball program in celebration of your success and for your contributions to our community. So thank you to both of these programs. We're blessed to have Jovan Overshone joining us today. And if you would like to say some words for this virtual presentation.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to present. I'm delighted and honored to accept on behalf of both programs. This is truly a community championship, a community success for both programs. And We're just so grateful for Baylor Nation, the Baylor family, for the city of Waco, for just really the way you've rallied behind both of our programs, for the women's 3 national championships and for the men's first. I mean, it's really special. So we very much feel that this is a community time of celebration. So we're excited to continue to do so. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're going to continue to root both of these outstanding, accomplished programs on and are thrilled for the future. So thanks for joining us this evening. We're next going to move to our next proclamation, which is a bit more somber. It is a proclamation, but somber but hopeful. It is a proclamation for Asian American and Pacific Islander Solidarity Day. And this is in response to the recent shooting in Atlanta and an upticks of violence on this community. And while we haven't responded to national tragedies like this in the form of a proclamation, we've done different things in the past. I believe our council thought that this was a moment for us to take a step with regard to this, decry violence and speak hope with solidarity in this moment. So I'll read this proclamation now. I, Dylan Meek, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Waco, do hereby proclaim April 6th, 2021 as Asian American and Pacific Islander Solidarity Day. And in the city of Waco, urge the people of Waco to join with the city council, the city staff, and me in celebrating Asian American and Pacific Islander Solidarity Day. We recognize that there has been a documented nationwide trend of increased discrimination and violence against Asian American and Pacific Islander, African Americans, Hispanics, and other races and ethnicities. Hate, violence, and bias are not accepted in our community, especially when targeting individuals based on their race, ethnicity, or identity. We honor all people whose lives are cut short by tragic acts of violence. We recognize that there's an urgent need for the community at large to come together and unite to support the Asian American and Pacific Islander community in all races and ethnicities. Each of us has a personal responsibility to prevent the spread of misinformation, to condemn and report violent acts, and to support all fellow community members, and to reject stigma, hate, bias in any form. We are committed to our vision to promote equity and inclusion in all that we do, and we ask you to join us in our renewed commitment for a diverse and inclusive community so all who live, work, and play in Waco feel welcome. In testimony whereof witnessed my hand and the seal of the city of Waco this 6th day of April, 2021. And the last proclamation we have today is the National Public Health Week. I, Dylan Meek, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the city of Waco, Texas, do hereby proclaim April 5th through 11th, 2021 as National Public Health Week in the city of Waco, and do urge the people of Waco to join with the city council, the city staff, and me in applauding the efforts of the public health professionals of the Waco-McLennan County Public Health District, who have helped our communities prevent, prepare for, withstand, and recover from the impact of a full range of health threats, including disease outbreaks such as the COVID-19 pandemic, which is the understatement, the biggest understatement, natural disasters and disasters caused by human activity. We call upon people of Waco to observe this week by helping families, friends, and leaders to better understand the value of public health and supporting great opportunities to adopt preventative lifestyle habits in view of this year's themes, building bridges to better health. Since 1995, the American Public Health Association, through its sponsorship of the National Public Health Week, has educated the public, policymakers, and public health professionals about issues important to improving the public's health. The dedication of these healthcare services, the dedication of these healthcare professionals, together with scientific and technological advances, have helped play a major role in reducing and in some cases eliminating the spread of infectious disease and in establishing today's disease surveillance and control systems. We recognize the need to raise awareness and are committed to assist in establishing the solid foundation needed for a healthy community and nation. Best wishes for a successful week. In testimony whereof witnessed my hand and the seal of the city of Waco this 6th day of April, 2021.
And Mayor and Council, LaShonda is here to accept the proclamation virtually.
Very good. Welcome, LaShonda.
Thank you so much, Mayor Meek. This is a very special National Public Health Week. Most years it comes and goes and not many people pay much attention, but this year I want to definitely make sure we celebrate the hard work of the committed staff within the health district. They've done a phenomenal job, and I'm honored to be here serving and leading this group now. Thank you all for all your support, and we look forward to moving forward with our vaccine processes and getting us all back to open. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If there was ever a year for this proclamation, it is right now. Thank you so much for all your efforts. LaShonda has been with us for a couple months now, or maybe about a month, and we're so thankful for your efforts and good work. Yeah, it might seem like a year, but we're so thankful for you.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Before we move on, I really, I do want to stop for a moment and just, sit in what these proclamations mean. Truly, to referencing our health district, our Public Health Week, our health district has done the lion's share of this work, and we would not be where we are now in our progression to get to whatever the finish line is in this without them. And I know that other cities have taken notice of the work of McLennan County Public Health District, and I need them to know that we know, okay? And we appreciate it, and is to say we appreciate you is an understatement, as you mentioned earlier. But also in the other, all of the proclamations today, I mean, I just think we ought to take a moment in them and not just glaze past them, because they are so important in their own ways, just as we are all probably a little bleary-eyed from celebrating our victorious Baylor Bears, on last night. The magnitude of us taking a stand, because the city of Waco has, I don't believe, publicly taken a stand to issue a Solidarity Day. And while there may have been times in the past where we could have / should have, understanding that we do it right now, and that we recognize that in those times when we haven't done it before, that doesn't mean we didn't see that those issues aren't as important, and that going forward, and I appreciate you, Mayor, and your leadership in this, going forward, there is a voice and there is a place and there is a position that the city of Waco will stand for our people. So as we honor and celebrate, we also offer a reverence to those that we lost. We, shun public violence and this incredibly just traumatic time that we are still living and functioning in, but we take our joys along with our sorrows, but we acknowledge them. And I think that we stop for a minute to do this right now is imperative and important, and it makes me proud of the city of Waco.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Absolutely. I think it's such good modeling on behalf of the city for us to mourn with those who mourn and rejoice with those who rejoice. It is such a joy to watch both the men and women's basketball teams just represent us with integrity and excellence and joy and doing good work well done on the basketball court, and also the trauma and the pain and the loss that our community and communities across the nation and across the world have endured in the last year is just horrific. And so I'm really grateful, particularly for this proclamation that's calling out the violence of white supremacy and of racism, and the way that we as a council have deeply committed ourselves in policies and in funding to promote equity, to promote a sense of hospitality for all of our neighbors. And I know in talking to some of our AAPI neighbors, they often feel invisible or overlooked in some of these conversations about race equity. So this moment feels really important and imperative to say, we see you, Asian American and Pacific Islander Wacoans. We are better because you are here. We want you to be safe. We want you to have the fullness of life and all that Waco has to offer. So I appreciate you, Mayor Meek, in creating space for this. And like Councilman Barefield said, I'm hopeful to see the kinds of proclamations and the strong, ardent stands we will take going forward in setting this visible and vocal commitment to solidarity and justice going forward.
Thank you, council members. As always, very well said. And I appreciate those very excellent words on these subjects. Because these subjects do deserve the pause and the thought. So thank you. We will next move to our public hearings. The first is public hearing 2021-180. And I believe Clint Peters, our Development Service Directors, will be making a presentation on this.
Yes, sir. Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution approving the following subdivision plat. Final plat of the Foxborough 2 Edition Phase 9. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended that the subdivision plat be approved with condition. Subsequently, the applicants provided response to conditions provided with commission approval. In accordance with state law, House Bill 3167 and city ordinance, the commission must reply to applicants' response by taking further action on the plat no later than 15th day after the date that the response was submitted. The commission was unable to meet in this time period, therefore the plat is deemed a recommendation of approval. The responses provided by the applicant have met all conditions of the Plan Commission recommendation from their February 11th, 2021 public hearing.
Any questions for staff on this? We will now open the public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak?
Mayor and council, we had no one registered to speak.
Good. We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval. Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Porterud,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Sabido,
Yes.
Meek,
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move to public hearing 2021-181. And I think we have another presentation from Clint on this.
Yes, Mayor. Before we start this public hearing, the next 5 public hearings, 181 through 185 are all special permits with the same findings. So I'd like to read those in the record first before we start 181. The findings are that the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan, that the proposed use is compatible with the appropriate and orderly development of the area which is located, that the proposed use would not be more objectionable to neighboring properties because of traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics that any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of the special exception, and that available community facilities and services, including the road system, providing access to the public use, proposed use are adequate for the proposed use. So for public hearing 181, this is to consider a resolution granting a special permit to Nathan Landers for a short-term rental type 1 in R1B zoning district on property described as lot 16, block 2 of the Highland Addition, known as 2901 Parrott Avenue. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following, on the findings that I just read in the record, which are required for granting a special permit per section 28.122 of the zoning ordinance.
Any questions for staff? We will open the public hearing. Did anyone register to comment on this?
No, sir, nobody registered to speak on this item.
Great. We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Porterud,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Sabido,
Yes.
Meek,
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move to 2021-182 with another presentation from Clint.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution granting a special permit to Beasley Construction LLC for short-term rental type 2 in R1B zoning district on property described as lot 15, block 6 of the Coronado Addition, known as 2912 Mildred Street. By a vote of 7-1, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the required findings for granting a special permit per section 28.122 of the zoning ordinance.
Any questions for staff?
Okay, Clint, do you know if the applicant, I was hoping they'd be here this evening, but would they consider long-term rental or selling the house rather than STR?
Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that for them.
Okay. No worries. I was just curious. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Did anyone, okay, we will now open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak on this, Esmeralda?
And no, Mayor, no one registered to speak on this item.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion on this?
I'll move for approval.
I'll second it, but I look forward to discussion.
Yes, I'll start off the discussion if that's okay. You know, I think short-term rentals make sense in certain parts of our city, but not when it comes to in areas where there is a lack of quality homes and quality housing. And so I would really, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago in our discussion, our work session of short-term rentals, you know, I would really love for us to see a plan how we move forward. But until that time, this public hearing does not have my support.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, just along similar lines, we do have a limited housing stock of quality, safe housing in the core. And so to see a property like this that's new and in good shape go to short-term rentals as opposed to being either a long-term rental or a home owned by a Wacoan just feels like a missed opportunity. So for similar reasons, I will be voting no on this.
Very good. Any more discussion? All right, please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Palmer,
No.
Porterwood.
No.
What was that?
It was a no.
No.
Fairfield,
No.
Sabido.
No.
Motion fails.
You didn't call me.
Oh, Meek.
This would be great if I didn't have to vote. Y'all won me over. I'll vote no for this one too. So that motion fails, and we'll move to public hearing item 183. And I think that we have another discussion from Clint.
Yes, sir. Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution granting a special permit to Braden and Lucy Appeal for a short-term rental type 2 in R1B zoning district on property described as lot 14, block 9, Terrace Park Edition, known as 2329 Columbia Street. By a vote of 7-1, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the findings required for granting a special permit per section 28-122 of the zoning ordinance.
Any questions for staff? We will open the public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak on this?
No, sir, no one registered to speak on this item.
We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Is there a second? Let's see this one. All right, it looks like it's going to die for a second. Is there another motion? Somebody's got to make a motion to disapprove if you're going to vote no. Right, Jennifer, what's the protocol here if no one's talking?
Yeah, there's not a live motion, so we need to have a live motion.
So I'll make a motion to deny the request.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I would say, usually I'm in a position where, I'm looking for active and involved neighborhood opposition. I would say that during this Zoom era, there have been some requests that have come up in neighborhoods that typically are very vocal in opposition that have not been able to voice their concerns. It's funny how that's worked. In court hearings, actually, we've seen more litigants appear on Zoom, but I've noticed on council and Plan Commission before it, we've had less community input. My sense on these is if my fellow council members believe that these neighborhoods, if this isn't appropriate for the neighborhood, then I'm willing to stand with them on that. I believe this one is somewhat, Mayor Pro Tem, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this is kind of almost in between our districts. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, sir.
But I'm willing to stand against it if the mind of the council is against it, because I do feel that the proliferation of these in primarily residential neighborhoods has become a bit much. And I know that's definitely true in more vocal neighborhoods, but there are some neighborhoods where, you know, folks aren't coming out. And I think in the Zoom era, it's harder to get that input.
Just to piggyback a little bit on what Councilmember Bordereau was saying, you know, I have noticed also, you know, a less responsive from our neighborhoods as we have moved to Zoom. But I am grateful for the other opportunities that not only I, but I'm sure my fellow council members have had to communicate with our neighborhoods through neighborhood association meetings, phone calls, et cetera, things like that. And it is important and imperative that for me, that we keep and preserve the family environment of a neighborhood. And so for that reason, I'm not voting to approve this STR as well.
Then I just want to confirm with Clint, the notices were sent out to all the neighbors and we went through that process, correct, Clint?
Correct. We mailed out 27 notices on this and had 2 returned with no comments.
Okay. Just want to confirm that because I guess we're going in the direction I go, and I've restated this 1,000 times. People are tired of hearing it from me. But if the neighbors say it's okay with me. If the neighbors say they don't like it, I don't like it. And then this one, the neighbors were contacted. They didn't say anything. They, by their silence, were complicit. So I'm still okay with the permit. So I'll be voting in opposition to the vote.
Clint, can I clarify? One of the questions that council had raised at the STR work session was whether we could have these letters sent out to renters. So I wonder, in some of this conversation, when we say people aren't responding, I often wonder how many of those are rental properties, and the people that are invested just aren't having access to those documents. Is that something that's still to be determined as to whether or not that will happen?
They did not get, so we are about to start that process, but for the cases that, you know, the notices were sent out before that discussion on these cases that are coming to that. We are starting that this month for the cases that are going to Plan Commission in April, to send it to the actual physical address.
Awesome. Thanks, Clint.
Sure.
And the letters are sent in both English and Spanish?
Yes, that's been happening for several years.
That's what I thought. I'm gonna lob it up in the atmosphere, and it may not have any bearing on this. If I am living in a neighborhood, for instance, and my legal status may not be one that would encourage me to run up to City Hall and speak against the changes to homes in my neighborhood. Do we give it, as we know, especially you in the planning department and the people that work with you, Clint, I'm sure that you know where the upticks of those neighborhoods are and these communities are. And I know that it's on us if we hear from those constituents who may or may not feel comfortable responding in that way, that those communities exist and those neighborhoods exist. So I just want to, that may not be the case here, but I do want to put it in the atmosphere. Okay. I also want to state, we have all said there are places where STRs work, in our city. We are not anti-STR. I want that to be clear because, I understand, as many of my constituents have said, this is an opportunity for us to make money. I'm always going to be the advocate of, the SR1 where they live on property, right? Isn't that right? I'm always going to be an advocate of that because you're still an active, engaged member of said community and not not necessarily someone who lives away from here. I do like those and consider those where the owners are within the neighborhood. I know we've come up upon some of those, and it's a house that maybe they bought as an asset. I think those are also good things. Where I want us to get, and I know you might not believe we can do it, but I have confidence in us that we can. That we need to set a plan of how many STRs we want, because at that point, when you get to a number, we're done. And I think that's, I'm not trying to stifle, any industry, because again, we are a destination city and there has to be places for people to stay. However, we are incentivizing all these lovely hotels. So there are options. But I think that, there are positions that they belong. We're just going to have to figure out what that looks like. And I think that we'll get there. It's not there right now. And that burden shouldn't be just on you, Clint. I think that all 6 of us, and Jennifer, need to, along with our city management, need to figure out, where we are, what best practices in certain cities. We've talked about, well, these cities do it this way, these cities do it that way. But I think that we may have to come back to another session and or a private retreat or something that's just STR and get it hashed out. Because I don't know because there is no, and I hear you, Jim, and I know what you're going to say before you say it. But there is no particular cut and dry thing, because there are some that are coming up tonight I'm going to vote yes for. So it's not a one, oh, well, check this box, I'm done. That's not the case, and so I think we need to get to a core or a set process in this and then be done.
For me on this is hard because, vulnerably, and I am tired from last night, so maybe I shouldn't be externally processing with this council and the public in this moment. But the housing is hard in Waco right now because we do have this great demand, and I find that compelling. We also need housing stock that needs to be repaired. And so I really struggle with this idea of how do we preserve housing stock that is in dire need of repair when there's people that want to put capital improvements and investment into the neighborhoods, where I'm not saying, and this, I don't think this neighborhood applies to this, but there's other parts of the city where we're in desperate need of people hungry to revitalize and repair homes and houses. But at the same time wanting to preserve family culture and prohibit displacement. And so I think that this is just housing, and the demand for housing, I think, is what's most compelling about this. Preserving stable core neighborhoods like this one, I think, is compelling, and the reason why I can vote with this motion. But I think that we're in process of doing a housing study, and hopefully some of the discussion that might come out of that, because I think, to Andrea's point, or Councilmember Barefield's point, we need to continue to have a discussion on short-term rentals, but really it's broader than that. It's about housing, and it's about how do we, in neighborhoods where, some days I'm like, why are we walling out people who want to revitalize these homes? And then there's other days that I'm like, man, we need to preserve culture and prohibit displacement. And I feel like there's an ambiguity on how to get this balance right. And I think that I'm hopeful that continued conversation in the housing study can really help us land that, or at least get some more clarity there. Because I do think there are instances when, there's parts of the city where we need capital investment in our housing preservation. And if a window of time that's going to serve as a short-term rental, but that provides that capital investment, I could get behind that. So that's some of the things that are swirling in my mind. But what I find really compelling from the previous discussion was just the need for, as the housing demand is significant, and ensuring that families have a space in stable core neighborhoods. So I'm comfortable with voting along with the council members that represent this district against this one. Any other discussion?
And I'll just add to the mix here that, and really, Mayor, to echo what you're saying on just the places where they are going into trying to fix up the property for the benefit of the neighborhood. And for a short period of time, they do need the short-term rental income. And that's the logic behind why we're seeing some of this, why the neighbors don't mind that there's a short-term rental in their neighborhood temporarily, I hate to go down the slippery slope of being cavalier about and inconsistent. There should be some level of predictability to me that a person is going to get the permit or is not going to get the permit, and not have it come down to, in this case, we just don't think it works. It should be more objective, but that's how I'll weigh in on that.
Very good.
Jennifer, or City Attorney Ritchie, can you clarify whether we're voting yay or nay on a no vote?
So my memory is it was the motion to deny that was seconded. And so if you want to deny the permit, you vote yes.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification.
On that note, please poll the council.
Holmes,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Porterwood,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Sabido,
Yes.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries. And we're moving to, I believe now, this is public hearing 2021-184. Is that right?
That's correct.
Clint Peters again.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution granting a special permit to FWC Hands Across Waco, Inc. for a short-term rental type 3 in R3E district on property described as lots 8A and 9, block 19 of the Prathers Anita Park Edition, known as 1620 Baylor Avenue. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the findings required for granting of a special permit for section 28-122 of the zoning ordinance.
Any questions for staff?
Clint, I have a question. We mentioned this, I think, in the work session, but the limit of the number of short-term rental units in a multifamily complex is 5. And you said that was an ordinance that we had fairly recently passed. Do you remember what the why behind the what of having that be a specific number as opposed to a percentage was? Because this would be 5 units, like this would make the entire complex all STRs, correct?
Correct. Yeah, this is proposed to be 5. It is 5 one-bedroom units, and then all 5 would be STRs. I think the thinking was when that ordinance was put in place is that if you made it a percentage, it potentially on a large complex you could have a large number of STRs in a complex, and so I think the intent was that the number was more important than the percentage, and that 5, so you wouldn't have an overabundant number of any units in a complex. And I think on some of these, really on these small units, it even makes more sense if there's going to be STRs in a small complex, that it be all the units, so you don't have that mix of long-term renters with the short-term renters, which could potentially cause issues.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Have we opened the public hearing?
Oh, I'm so sorry. We'll open the public hearing for comments. Did anyone register?
No, sir, no one's registered to vote on this item. To speak on this item.
We're going to get there. We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
I will second this one. Any discussion?
Yeah, once again, I will state my case that, and even though this is not a single dwelling unit, it's still, there's an opportunity to provide housing, even if it's temporarily long-term, for the core of our city, which is much needed. Just to carry on a little bit on the conversation from a few minutes ago, I'm also all in for a capital investment on a property and turn it around. But there is a flip side of that coin where not all property that's rented out is invested in. And so we go back to the point of people renting out homes or apartments or something that are not kept up to par. And so I know we've had that discussion as well. And so for that reason also, I'm voting against this.
I guess in my mind, there is somewhat of a distinction between residential single-family dwellings and essentially what's attempted right here by the interstate A lot of the heart of my opposition personally to certain cases where SDRs are being requested is usually that it's kind of changing the residential character of a neighborhood. I think in the previous two, that seemed in play. For me, I drive by this building daily. It's been an eyesore for a long time, for sure. I'm glad to see that it's seeing some investment. And I hear Mayor Pro Tem's comments about, needing long-term investment. But for me, this one seems to be appropriate for the situation.
Yeah, go ahead, Andrea.
And they still, just for the public's information, STR still pay hot taxes. Because I'm like, if it's one house, that's one thing. But when you're basically making a mini motel, a mini hotel, I just want to make, they're still paying hot tax. Are there any other rules or things that hotels may have that STRs don't?
So they have to meet building code for multifamily building, and then you're right, they have to pay the hot tax. I don't know of any other city requirements that would be exempted from them. There are some building code differences between a multifamily complex and a
Gotcha.
hotel, but they're pretty similar.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I'll just go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to clarify a little bit earlier. When we get these STRs that come before council, many times they are in the process of being worked on. And so we don't get to see the finished product. Not to say that that's anyone's fault or staff's fault or anything like that, but one of the things I wonder is, we see the pictures that they're working on, but don't necessarily see the finished product and what that will look like on the outside and as you're driving by. And so that's another one of my reservations or hesitations in approving these while they're still being worked on.
Do we have a list, and is it possible that as we get these, if they have other properties, if that can be identified in our information?
Yes, we can provide that. Yes.
Thank you. And is this the case with this applicant?
They do. They have at least one, maybe two single-family residences that are approved for STRs. I believe this organization is a for-profit organization that supports a nonprofit group, so that the investment on these properties is to raise money for a nonprofit use. So that they have a couple other STR properties that they run in Waco.
Clint, with that, if this were to be a part of just the process of knowing how many entities or other properties an entity owns, it would be awesome to know too if whatever holding company, if they've received any complaints from neighbors, so we have an idea as to which entities are good neighbors and partners and which ones have a history of being challenging or problematic.
Yes, we can provide that. And I will say, they were originally going to come with this request much earlier, before they had started the renovation of that building. And because it was in such poor shape and out of code, staff did request that they hold off and at least get pretty far along in the construction process before they came forward. So you could see, how it was shaping up as a finished product.
Do you know if they're doing anything or if they are on the outside of the building?
They have done some painting, and they've altered the facade somewhat.
So the way it looks present day is pretty much the way it's going to look.
From the outside, there might be a little bit more, cosmetic improvements, but it's not. They're not expanding it any further. Or
okay.
Major on outside.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to echo Councilmember Borderoud's comments here. Given its location on I-35, it being a commercial property already, and in my experience, short-term rentals are more successful when they are well cared for. And this property has been, frankly, very undercared for many years. So I feel confident that this is one that I feel comfortable supporting. Any other discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Palmer,
No.
Porteroo,
Yes.
Fairfield,
I abstain.
Sabido,
No.
Meek,
Yes. Jennifer,
Okay, so we've got,
top question. Does that motion carry?
no, it does not carry. An abstain is counted as a no.
Okay. So what does that mean for the planning commission, the requirements to overturn the planning commission?
This is just a special permit, so you don't have to overturn the plan commission. So this would fail just like 182 failed.
Okay.
Clint, do you agree?
Yes.
Y'all are making me learn all kinds of parliamentary stuff.
All right. We will go to public hearing 2021-185.
And Mayor, if I may, Clint included this in the findings for special permits. Clint, I believe those findings for special permits don't apply to this one, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, this is a zone change. Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the city of Waco, Texas, providing that the code of ordinances of the city of Waco be amended by revising section 28-247 and chapter 28 zoning of said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described as lots 3 through 6, block 1 in Sedgwick Edition, known as 2012, 2014, and 2020 North 5th Street shall be changed from R2 district classification and be designated into O3 district classification, providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding determined that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 7-1, the Plan Commission recommended approval of the zone change request based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is keeping with the land use component of the comprehensive plan and the Imagine Waco plan for greater downtown. 2, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in O3 zoning. 3, the property meets all the area and width requirements for O3 zoning district. And 4, there is a O3 zoning near the subject property.
Any questions for staff?
I do have a question. Clint, earlier in your presentation, you, and I think it was in our agenda packet that the Brook Oaks Neighborhood Association was against this agenda item, correct?
That's correct. We received an email in opposition with their main point of opposition being that the zoning change would open it up potentially for short-term rentals.
And that came from a group of the neighborhood association, or was it the president? Or
the email came from the president, but they did have discussion on that topic at their last neighborhood meeting.
And the consensus was that they weren't in favor of changing the zoning.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
It's not a question necessarily, it's more of a statement. I read the input placed by Bona and understand, right? Because I think that cracking up neighborhoods with multiple zoning leads to, you know, some of the blessings and curses that are known as the city of Houston. But I think that one of the things that I want to acknowledge is that Fifth Street is a major thoroughfare, right? It's kind of like Herring. There are commercial, businesses, commercial entities. No, it's not a commercial zone because it is the anchor, if you will, of entering into neighborhoods, right? But it is a major thoroughfare and there are businesses placed on. I don't see a crisis with this zone change, mainly because all of that block stands in agreement on it. If it was just the one entity, I probably would have some issues with that. And the space next to it is empty. and then the space next to that at Herring is a business, right? So I don't have an issue with, because that's going to be a swap, an area, a block, you know, not a literal block, but a land mass that has the opportunity to engage in either way. And I know that there's some spaces across the street that are currently being used as residential, but are zoned, what is it, 03, right?
Yeah.
Also. So, you know, I think that while I do hear the input of the neighborhood association, and I think it's important, I also think that this is, at least it's done orderly, you know, decent and in order is what we like to see. And it is done with the consideration of the neighbors that surround it. And there was no, outside of the neighborhood association, in the reasons that they gave, was there any additional opposition?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think that this entity I would support, and I am supporting, but because of the reasons that I gave.
Any more questions for staff? We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
I was gonna move to deny.
I'm sorry. Real quickly, Mayor and Esmeralda, was the public hearing opened?
No. I don't think there was a public hearing open.
I'm sorry about that, guys. We will open up, so what do I do now that there's a motion on the table, Jennifer?
A motion has been seconded.
Say it again.
Reverse.
The motion was never seconded,
Okay.
is what Esmeralda said. So why don't I just go back and we'll open the public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak on this?
No, sir, no one registered to speak on this item.
Okay, we will close that public hearing. Now is there a motion?
Motion to deny.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, I share many of the same thoughts of Councilwoman Barefield, but I land on the opposite side of the fence. I think Herring, I live on Herring and Fifth are at these interesting intersections of being the crosshairs of commercial and residential. Having participated and listened to neighbors at the most recent Bona neighborhood meeting, I'm compelled by the reasons that they give and want to not see our residential areas become encroached by commercial zones. So I want to preserve the integrity of this residential zoning. And so that's why I will be voting in denial.
Any more discussion? Please go ahead.
Which council district is this in, if you don't mind me asking?
4.
We split Herring.
So is this on the edge between the districts?
Yeah, I mean, literally, like if my house is on this side of Herring and I'm looking at that property on the other side of the street. We split Herring.
All right, any more discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes. This is a motion.
No. No.
Palmer.
Aye.
Porter.
No.
Fairfield.
No.
Sabido.
This has turned out to be an interesting evening. Yes.
Meek.
I'll vote yes for this one. So that motion,
The motion passes, the zoning is denied.
we will close the hearing. Or,
Wait, just a second.
It's 3-3.
It was 3-3.
Oh, it's 3-3.
Yeah, and it's 3-3.
So the motion
not-
fails.
It fails.
okay. So the motion fails. So what is that? What is the outcome there? That motion fails. So do we move on?
Yeah, so you move on.
Yeah.
All right, we will go to public hearing, 186. Yeah, Move to public hearing 2021-186, another one with Clint Peters.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the city of Waco, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the city of Waco be amended by revising section 28-247 and chapter 28 zoning of said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed at certain property described as lots 9 and 10, block 4 of the Kiger addition, known as 1301 Daughtry Avenue, shall be changed from R2 district classification and be designated into R3C district classification, providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. One, the proposed zoning is compatible with the land use component of the comprehensive plan and the purpose and intent of the College and University Neighborhoods District overlay. Two, the existing infrastructure and street conditions are adequate to support densities allowed in R3C zoning. Three, once platted, the property meets all the area and width requirements for R3C zoning, and that there is R3C zoning in the near the subject property.
Any questions for staff? All right, we'll open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak?
No, Mayor and Council, no one registered to speak for this item.
We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Porteroo,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Sabido,
Yes.
Meek,
Yes, that motion carries. We'll now move on to public hearing 187.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the city of Waco, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the city of Waco be amended by revising section 28-247 and chapter 28 zoning of said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described as lot 5, block 3, a Central Professional Park Edition, known as 6251 Bagby Avenue, shall be changed from N2 district classification, become to be designated in the C2 district classification, providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended the approval request based on the following findings. One, the proposed zoning is keeping in the land use component of the comprehensive plan. Two, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in C2 zoning. Three, the property meets all the area and width requirements for C2 zoning. And four, the property is near the intersection of two arterial streets, being Texas Central Parkway and Bagby Avenue.
Any questions for staff? We'll open a public hearing. Did anyone register to speak?
Yes, Mayor, Council, we do have Mr. Guy Slimp, who is on the phone. And if you'd like to unmute Mr. Slimp. And I think it's star 91 or star 61. Oh, darn it. To unmute yourself.
Mr. Slim?
He's raising his hand. Mr. Slim, I'm going to call you from my cell phone, and then you'll be able to speak through my phone. Mr. Slam, you are now on City Council, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Council, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Guy Slim. I live at 2209 Highland Drive, Salado, Texas, 76571. I just want to make myself available for the zoning case. This is in conjunction with an annexation case later in your packet. If you guys have any questions, I just want to make myself available. It's a project we're working on at the intersection there. City staff's aware of it. And anyway, do you guys have any questions? I'm here.
Any questions for Mr. Slimp? Mr. Slimp, we appreciate your time. I don't think you have any questions tonight.
Great.
Did anyone else register to speak on this?
No, sir, I had nobody else registered to speak on this item.
Very good. We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval. Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Porterwood,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Sabido,
Yes.
Meek,
Yes, that motion carries. We'll go to public hearing 2021-188.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance, the City of Waco, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning and said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described as Lot 11, Block 1 of the Wortham Bend Retail Center addition known as 10108 China Spring Road with a property ID of 361,042 and a 0.851 acre tract of land located in the James Lane Survey, Abstract 531, City of Waco, McLennan County, Texas, and being a portion of Lot 12, Block 1 of the Wortham Bend Retail Center Edition, Lot 11 and 12, Block 1, as recorded in document number 2011-03-2363, the official public records in McLennan County, Texas, known as 10-200 China Spring Road, with a property ID of 361,043, shall be changed from O3 district classification and be designated in C2 district classification. Providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding determined the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the zone change based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is keeping with the land use component of the comprehensive plan. 2, the public infrastructure adequate to provide for uses allowed in C2 zoning. 3, the property meets all the area and width requirements for C2 zoning. 4, there is C2 zoning adjacent to the subject property. And 5, the C2 zoning is the dominant zoning between Cougar Ridge and Saddle Creek Road along China Spring Highway.
Thanks, Clint. Any questions for staff? We will open a public hearing. Did anyone register to speak?
No, sir, nobody registered to speak for this item.
We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Porterwood,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Sabido,
Yes.
Meek,
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move on to public hearing 2021-189.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning and said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described as lots 10, A11, and B12, Block 51 of the Ross subdivision known as 1014 and 1016 Ross Avenue, with property ID 188677 and 188679. Lot C12, A12, A21, and A22, Block 51 of the Ross subdivision, and Lot B22, Block 2 of the H.J. Chamberlain addition known as 800 South 11th Street, with a property ID of 188680. Lots 2 and E, Block 51 of the Ross subdivision, known as 804 South 11th Street. Property ID is 188678. Lot 2, Block 51 Ross subdivision, and lots 8, B9 and 19, Block 2 of the H.J. Chamberlain addition, known as 812 South 11th Street, with a prop ID of 188676. And lots 8 and 18, Block 2 of the H.J. Chamberlain addition, known as 816 11th Street, with a prop ID of 188675. Lot 23, Block 2, the prop ID is 167540. And lot 6, 7, B, and C7, Block 51, Ross subdivision, known as 1013, 1017, and 1019 Cleveland Avenue, with prop ID of 188, 672, 673, and 674, shall be changed from C3 district classification and be designated in the O2 district classification. Providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding determining the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public required by law. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is keeping with the land use component of the comprehensive plan and the Imagine Waco plan for greater downtown. 2, the public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in O2 zoning. 3, the property meets all the area and width requirements for O2 zoning district. And 4, there's O2 zoning adjacent to the and near the subject property.
Any questions for staff? We will open a public hearing. Did anyone register to speak?
Yes, Mayor and Council, we have a few who registered to speak. The first one is Mr. Michael Ash. I will move him to a panelist. And Mr. Ash, when you're on, you can turn on your camera if you'd like to address the council. And you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. This is Mike Ash. I really am just here to answer any questions you may have. We also have our our project engineer, Matt Creedy, and our project architect, Michael Gilliard, available to answer questions. Really just here to answer any questions and say sic 'em Bears.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions for Mr. Ash? I appreciate it, Mike. Looks like we have a couple more people from your firm on the line. Would you like for them to speak as well, Mr. Ash? Is that the plan?
I think they're available just as resources, Mayor, in case you need them.
Does that include Matthew and Michael as well?
Yes, sir.
Great. Any questions for the architect, engineering, or any associates of Mr. Ash? All right, we appreciate Mr. Ash. We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Porteroo,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Sabido,
Yes.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move to public hearing 2021-190.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance abandoning a portion of right-of-way located at the northeast corner of Cobb's Drive and Woodcrest Drive, described as a 0.115 acres of land in the city of Waco, and the J. Sampier Survey, abstract number 785, McLennan County, Texas, and being a portion of Woodcrest Drive bound by the southeast line of Cobb's Drive, the southwest line of Lot 1, Block 1 of the Residency of Ridgewood Edition, to the city of Waco, McLennan County, Texas, recorded under McLennan County Clerk's file number 2020-033-864, the official public records of McLennan County, Texas, and the northeast line that called 0.013 acre tract, as shown in the Southern Terrace Edition to the city of Waco, McLennan County, Texas, recorded in volume 1244, page 466 of deed records of McLennan County, Texas, and authorizing the city manager to execute quitclaim deeds, providing a severability clause and finding determined the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommend approval of abandonment based on the following findings and condition. One, that public use of the right-of-way is not required for proper flow of traffic or for emergency vehicle access to the area. And two, utility access for surrounding properties is not adversely impacted by the abandonment of the right-of-way. And we do have one condition, is that a 20-foot easement must be retained for the area abandoned of the right-of-way centered on the existing water line.
Any questions for staff? We will open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak?
No, sir, nobody registered to speak on this item.
Very good. Is there a motion? We will close the public hearing. We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion? Sorry.
I'll move for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Porteroo,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Sabido,
Yes.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries. We'll move to public hearing 2021-191. Clint, I think that this is your last one for the evening.
It's Renisha's.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I've been jumping off.
The outline I have says Clint, so sorry about that. Renisha.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and council members. This is a public hearing to receive comments on an amendment to the 2019-2023 Consolidated Plan and the 2019 Annual Action Plan to provide funding for broadband infrastructure, employment training, child care centers, youth services, and to provide services to persons experiencing homelessness, all in support of the city's COVID-19 response. The city of Waco was awarded additional funding through the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act to be used to respond to COVID-19. The proposed amendment would provide spending of federal funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's Community Development Block Grant Program as follows. Provide funding up to $400,000 for broadband infrastructure for installation and improved access services to low to moderate income communities. Provide funding up to $75,000 for employment training to equip persons with skills to become a certified essential worker. Provide funding up to $100,000 to child care centers for operating costs and or scholarships. Provide funding up to $50,000 to youth services for a summer education program, and also provide funding up to $304,437 for operating expenses for 24/7 shelter care provided to persons experiencing homelessness. The amendment was placed out for public comment from March 29th, 2021 through April the 2nd, 2021. Notice was placed in the non-legal section of the Waco Tribune Herald newspaper, posted on the city's website and also on the city's bulletin board. To date, we have received no comments.
Thank you, Renisha. Any questions for staff?
No questions, Mayor, but I do want to reiterate what I said at the work session is one of the things that became very apparent was through COVID was the need to quality childcare. And so I'm very excited and support 100% that part of the funding on this agenda item is going to our daycare centers or provide scholarships for those that may need it. And so that is a big reason and why I'm supporting this public hearing.
This is Holmes too, and kind of I'll say the same thing I did this afternoon as well. I liked how the process worked. There was community engagement on how to use these funds. And Renisha, I appreciate you shepherding this process. And I like the focus on broadband, as we stated and talked about this afternoon, coming up with a more holistic solution on that. And this is a great first step. So I'm supportive of this as well.
Any other discussion?
As one last comment to this, like Mayor Pro Tem Sabito said, one of the things that COVID really revealed is that access to Wi-Fi and access to consistent internet became so clear. And this is clearly a need in 2021. It's not a want. This is the way that our kids are going to school. This is the way that so many of us are doing our jobs. And so it is critical for us from a public health standpoint, from a financial security standpoint, from just a community well-being standpoint, that all of our neighbors have access to internet access. So this feels like a really important piece, and we're seeing momentum of this on the federal level and the state level. So it just makes sense that we're also incentivizing and putting money towards this to prioritize it on a local level. So this whole list is just phenomenal. And anyone that's running for council right now, I think you can just draw from this list and have an incredibly compelling case.
Very good. Okay. So please, public counsel.
I think we need to.
I'll move for approval.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I'll second.
If anyone can't tell, I stayed up all night last night watching a basketball. I was going to say it at the end. I'll just say it now.
So Esmeralda, has the public meeting been opened and closed?
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
All right. I thought we were in the discussion part of it, but we hadn't got that far. So we will open a public hearing for comments. Did anyone register to speak on this item?
No, sir.
We will close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move for approval.
I will second.
Any discussion? It's already been had. Any more discussion that you want to have? All right, please pull the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Porter.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Sabito.
Yes.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll now move to the consent agenda. I wasn't here for the beginning part of the meeting, but my understanding is that we're pulling 200, 201, and 206 from the consent agenda. Is that correct?
It's 200, 206, and 209 from the consent agenda.
Okay, 200, 206, 209. And I do think Councilmember Barefield wants to pull 201. Is that
201,
correct?
please. Yes, sir.
All right, so we will first move to 2021-200, which is approving a ground lease for Pura Vida Paddle LLC. I believe Aaron Ward has registered to speak on this item.
Yes.
So will she speak now?
Yes, sir. She'll speak now. I've moved her over to panelist. Mrs. Ward, are you there, Ms. Ward?
Hi, Ms. Ward. Ms. Ward, are you there?
Can y'all hear me now?
We can. Hi.
Yes.
Hey. Well,
And you're
I just
welcome
want
to share your screen, Ms. Ward. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. Hello, are y'all there?
Hi, Aaron.
Hey, everybody. I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity for being here. Mainly, I'm just giving myself here just to be here for any kind of questions. My name is Aaron Ward. My husband, Blake, and I are the founders and owners of Pura Vida Paddle, which we started back in 2017. We're very passionate about it. I love what we do with it. I love the peace we bring people. It's something that we had a spot ever since the fall, and that spot got pulled. And so now I'm really excited about the possibility to possibly do this at Francis Marquis, which is the best part to actually paddle this area. So I'm here for questions, whatever you need. Thank you again for everything.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. We appreciate it. Any questions for Ms. Ward? All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Ward. We appreciate you. Have a good evening. Is there a motion on resolution 2021-200?
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
I had a second from Councilmember Sabido. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Holmes,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Porterud,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Sabido,
Yes.
Meek,
Yes, that motion carries, and we will move to resolution 2021-201. There are no registered speakers on this one, I believe. Is that correct, Esmeralda?
that's correct.
Great. Is there a motion on resolution 2021-201?
I'll move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Okay. Any discussion?
I do have questions. So I pulled it because I had a question and I wanted the question to go on record, right? And thank you, Galen. I was like, I hope Galen is here. Do you know what are the intentions to just remove services completely? And if so, you know, what is, because I understand that there's still some youth services that are done at that facility. You know, what are the intended plans for those youth? You know, what's going to happen? You know, because I understand, you know, whatever, I don't know what their reasoning is for the terminate the lead. My concern is mostly for the patrons that they have and those children in that community, what's going to happen to the programs that are there.
Good evening, Council. Regarding the programs that are at the Edna facility, they had a preschool program and after school drop-off location there, as well as summer camp. The preschool had low enrollment prior to COVID, so they're not planning to actually bring the preschool back to that location. They've shifted the after-school programs to the actual schools. So they're operating on the campuses, so there's no need for them to have that facility as a drop-off location. Then a summer camp, they're still planning to house summer camp at Doris Miller and at the Waco Family Y. Because of their financial situation, at this point, they're not going to be providing preschool care, but would potentially reevaluate that in the future.
Okay. That gives me a little bit more comfort in that, you know, I understand, I know it's a city facility, it's a city building, you know, and they were leasing it, but I just, you know, my concern was for those that are affected. And if should this be terminated, you know, have we given any thought to that building's use?
Yes, we actually are exploring uses for that building, which may include potentially it being used as a childcare site in the future. So,
okay, very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes,
Aye.
Palmer,
Aye.
Porterwood,
Yes.
Fairfield,
Yes.
Sabido,
Yes.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries, and we will move to resolution 2021-206. And I believe that we have a Dr. Northcutt who is registered to speak on this item.
Yes, sir. Dr. Northcutt, you're being moved over to the panelist section. You can turn on your camera. There you go. And you have 3 minutes to speak on both this and the item of the hearing of visitors.
Right. Thank you. First of all, I'm really gratified that the city's requesting proposals for EV charging stations, on city-owned property. We've been calling for this since about 2018, and this is really an important step in addressing the climate crisis, and I'm glad to see it. However, in the wording of the resolution is somewhat vague to me, and I want to mention a few caveats. It says stations. Now, in normal language, this would mean multiple sites. Now, I'm not sure if that's the meaning or the intent, but when you say stations, that usually means more than one location, multiple plugs, from one station. Next is the type of charger, and it's not stated, and this is an important point. You wouldn't want to have level 1 chargers here. Normally, in a public charging facility like this, you would have level 2 charging. You charge about 20 miles per each hour. Level 3 charging would probably be too expensive and would require extreme power supply. So I think it should be specified what's really requested here, and that would be a level 2 charger. Now, the location of the chargers is also interesting. Now, probably the people that would be find this most appealing would be guests at the Hilton, because they would be there already. So it would be natural for them to charge there, say, overnight during their stay. If it was in front of the city hall per se, it would sort of make a statement that the city was moving forward with renewable energy and electrification of transportation. But if the idea is to involve as many Waco citizens as possible with charging, I think there's better locations, such as a city park or a shopping center if the city owns any of that property. I'm not sure on that point. But you want to have chargers where people normally are, such as a park or during shopping. I don't think this site would probably get too many Waco citizens. It wouldn't be ideal for that. Also, I think we keep in mind that the Biden infrastructure plan is calling for building 500,000 EV chargers and using a portion of $174 billion for that. And I would suspect some of this would end up in Waco. One last point is the TCEQ has just announced a new grant program for light duty vehicles. And this is going to be announced during April, and there's only 60 days to apply. So I think this would be a great opportunity for the city to—
Thank you, Dr. Northcutt. Your time is up.
Thanks.
Do we have any other registered speakers on this item?
No, sir, we do not.
All right, we will move to, whose timer is that? Somebody's. All right. What's going on? Do y'all hear that, or is it just me? Okay. It's probably God saying this meeting needs to wrap up. All right.
It's strange.
Is anybody trying to call right now, you think?
No, I don't see anyone trying to call. Here, it stopped. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Is anyone on staff able to answer any of the specific questions that Dr. Northcutt brought up about location, level, amount that is being considered?
Sure. I'm going to ask Paul Kane to hop on. I think he can give you the best and most thorough response.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening. We will be asking for an RFP that will ask the providers to look at the market, look at the number of EV vehicles we have, the model, the type in Waco and in McLennan County, And so that'll be some of the data that will come in. We'll look at a number of city properties around Waco and see, as Dr. Northcutt said, what have the most, which ones have the most access and can reach out to the most people to provide the service. So all of the things that Dr. Northcutt said we'll be looking at in our RFP, and we'll be soliciting vendors who are in that line of business, who understand the market. And so we'll be looking at all of those things and welcome him and others to provide input to staff. I know Kelly in our General Services Department has reached out to some folks, and so we welcome any more comments that they might have. They can email them to me or to Kelly Holacek in General Services.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul, for your leadership and taking the reins on this. I appreciate it.
Sure.
For the public side of that answer that Paul gave, I do want to make sure there is some understanding that, I mean, the resolution that goes to the council, there's a document that sits behind that has a lot more detail of what information the staff is requesting. And so there, as Paul mentioned, there are details that we request from responders and that will cover and be a little more comprehensive.
Great. Okay. Is there a motion on resolution 2021-206?
I'll move for approval. Second.
Any discussion?
I'll just jump in, Dylan. That, yeah, I think, as I said this afternoon, I think this council in the last 3-4 years has done a lot on moving forward with sustainability and renewable energy. We've got the energy guidance document that we talked about that takes a full inventory of all of our fleet, all of our buildings, and I think we have an awareness now that we didn't have just only 3 or 4 years ago of sustainability and renewable energy. And I like moving forward with this EV plan, and I fully support this resolution.
Any other discussion? All right, please pull the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Porteroot.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes, sorry, my fingers are behind. Sorry, yes.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move to resolution 2021-209.
Mayor, that one's pulled from the agenda, so to come back.
Okay, got it. Great. All right, the consent agenda consists of resolutions 2021-192 through 2021-214, accepting for the resolutions 2021-200, 201, 206, and 209. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion for approval on consent agenda.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Please pull the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Palmer.
Aye.
Porteroot.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Meek.
Yes, that motion carries, and we'll move to the hearing of visitors. We will now open a hearing of visitors. During the hearing of visitors section of the agenda, we will provide an opportunity for the public to present concerns or address issues that are not matters of consideration listed on the agenda. Council is unable to conduct discussion, but will listen, ask staff to look into concerns, and will provide follow-up. When called to speak, please state your name for the record. Each speaker must limit their comments to 3 minutes. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or who becomes boisterous while addressing the city council will be cut off from the Zoom as directed by the presiding officer. I believe Teresa Porter has registered to share a presentation.
Yes, Mayor and Council, she has. I'm going to share my screen, and the video will stop playing at the 3-minute mark. So give me a second, it'll be a little tricky.
Pollution coming out of tailpipes takes theory into the case lungs. 1 out of 4 kids in my community have access.
It is hard to learn if you can't breathe. Let me tell you about my story. I always say I must breathe, but for some reason I can speak and I can't even breathe. And the oxygen rocks in my lungs and I can't even scream. I feel like I'm popping this oxygen, not allowing me to think. It feel like life is messed up and all just have some ways. It got me inhaling the smoke on highways and freeways. And now I'm feeling like I gotta walk around with masked up, cause the stuff in the air been messing with my asthma. Last year I had to dial it back, cause in PE I almost had an asthma attack. See, it's hard to split these rhythms when there's something in your system hiding, lurking in the children, and you hoping it don't kill them. Yeah, I know that this is crazy, it's true, but if your parents lose their child, you don't know what they gonna do. And it's all because of these big companies making it smog a lot, not realizing what they're doing, causing my brain around. Solution in disguise, you gotta change it. Electrify the mind, so gonna change it. We gotta clear the air, gonna change it. Gonna change it, gonna change it. I see the conditions of the world now, I swear it's making me nervous. Sometimes I feel like we're being ignored, you know if they do it on purpose. Scream loud for a little love, but I can't really tell if they heard us. All we asking is for clean air, I guess they don't really deserve it. Please, because where we come from, the children ain't run, and get all of their long. The pollution we taking in every day, we seeing a larger effect, right? You got a child and I got a child, we got a child to protect, right? I see the diesel trucks coming in and out of the city, dropping off what they deliver. Air quality, even messing up the rain. You see it all in the river. More asthma and cancer. I guess we can say that it's lethal. This Google particulate matter, it's killing a lot of our people. We just want a chance to live better, love better, we can get better. Let's still hope for us all. Let's go green for us all. Third rock hip hop, and we're trying to feel a change. Yo, we doing a lot, and you just do what you can. Solution in disguise, you gotta change it. Electrify the mind, so gonna change it. We gotta clear the air, gonna change it. Gonna change it, gonna change it. Pollution in disguise, you gotta change it. Electrify the mind, so gonna change it. We gotta clear the air, gonna change it. Gonna change it, gonna change it. We are leaders, we strong kids. I feel us, we never back down, cause our planet, yeah, she needs us to stand up. Remember, we are rising together. We can be better than we are right now. We gotta change it.
There's a better technology out there that's not powered by pollution, it's powered by solutions.
Gonna change it, gonna change it, gonna change it.
Bring clean car.
Esmeralda, are there any other registered speakers?
No, sir, there are no other registered speakers.
All right, we will now ask if there are any council member reports on committees, boards, or commission liaison visits.
Just a brief report on youth council. I wanted to acknowledge that I'm really proud of the project they're working on. They're doing a booklet about college admissions. So from the application process to scholarships to essays to financial aid and that and best colleges, and they've broken into their individual subcommittees to do so. That that piece will be collectively online on their social media, as well as available in a printed copy at all of the libraries. And I have asked that they make sure that the schools have hard copies as well. I think we can cover that. But they have done an excellent job in assisting their peers in getting to the next level. And that's not just four-year universities, that's community colleges, technical college. They've done a really good job, but I wanted our mayor and council to know the hard work that our youth council is doing for our community.
Amazing. It's great work, and we thank you for that report, Councilmember Bearfield.
Councilmember Bearfield, applications are open for the youth council right now. Is that correct?
They absolutely are. They opened first day of April, and will close the 30th.
And people just need to be a Waco resident and in.
You need to be a Waco resident at least rising to 9th grade. So you have to, for the school year, you have to be an incoming freshman, and the youth council themselves will conduct the interviews. They're working on their questionnaires right now, so you will be interviewed by your peers.
That's awesome.
Councilmember Bearfield, how would one know if they still had some eligibility left for youth council?
You don't. If you've graduated high school, you're no longer eligible, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, guys. Anything else? Any other requests for future agenda items? There being no business, further business, we will adjourn at 7:42 p.m. Everyone have a great evening. Signal Bears.